we're not playing a game tonight. We're playing the game tomorrow. So as kind of a place filler for our normal Friday night stuff, we're going to do this. I do have plans to make a more regular type tabletop TP show. That's going to be probably Saturday mornings, maybe Sunday mornings, earlier in the morning for us, which is a good time for people, in Europe and elsewhere in the world to join in. Because right now it's kind of hard for anyone, east of the East Coast of the United States to join in with us. So we're really limiting our audience by doing it on Friday nights. But again, this is just kind of a placeholder for our normal Friday night stuff. And what we're going to do is we're going to continue our talk about chain of command versus bolt action. So I can't remember exactly where we left off because I lost my notes. But we were talking before the show started, and we think we know where we were. So we'll bring in our two guests. Jordan could not make it tonight, but we do have Ryan back.
Hello.
Ryan Horton. He has a web or a YouTube channel called Little Roadie Wargaming. So check that out if you want to see some more battle reports, very similar to the games that we play on this channel. And of course, Greg, Super Gamer, Padilla is back. He doesn't have a YouTube channel, but he plays everything and has virtually everything. So he knows a lot about gaming. And so what we'll do real quick at the start of the show, we're kind of trying to develop a format here. So we're going to look at some of the stuff that we're each doing, and then we're going to do our talk, and then we're going to look at some stuff that some of the Facebook group members sent in to show on the live stream here. So before we start, let's just go in and say hi to whoever's here. So generic Facebook user is here. We don't know who that is. Stotzenberg's here. Hello, Stotzenberg. And Simon Doran says, good evening. And Check Your Leader TV is here. So that's my buddy Scott down in Australia.
On the down under.
He also has his YouTube channel called Check Your Leader TV, coincidentally. So check him out as well. Eat4 Airmen, one of our most loyal live stream participants. So Simon said, thanks for hosting the chat, Travis, Dan, Ryan, and Greg. You're welcome. Scott says midday in Bendigo, Victoria. Tomorrow midday there. So Mark's here. Hello, Mark. And another generic Facebook user. Oh, Dan Mace. Okay. Yeah, we can't get the Facebook usernames to show up. They have to sign up or something. It's kind of a hassle, it looked like. So they'll just stay anonymous for now, I suppose. And another Facebook user says, just caught this on Facebook, hit the button. We'll have to switch to, okay. Well, let us know who you were when you get back. So anyway, let's go ahead and look at some stuff that we've been working on. I'll start off with the stuff that I've been doing. So if I can see these little icons, at least, that is. So. So I got done with the, or actually that's the not done yet picture. So that's the wrong picture, but I did finish the Churchill and the two Marmon Harringtons. The one with the twin medium machine guns. There's one, I think it's an auto cannon, and then another machine gun. So I finished those.
It's very Lindy. Hey Travis, it's very Lindy Beige.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at them on my phone. I deleted a bunch of pictures, so I went back through. I had to resurrect them, and I picked the wrong one. So, but I did finish these. So these came out really good.
Hell yeah!
The two Matildas and the Bishop with some kind of poor man's canter camo on them.
Yeah, the canter came out pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Just some masking tape and. Yeah, real simple. Nothing to it, really. What else I got here? I started working on a couple of 156 scale Rubicon vehicles for my Winter Americans. So my friend Steve was complaining when he played the Winter Americans in our last bolt action game that I didn't have any transports. So got some transports now. And these are the Rubicon ones. It was weird because the glue that I had that I used for all the Warlord models, I'm not going to say it didn't work for the Rubicon stuff, but it took for like 24 hours for it to set. Like normally I would put that plastic glue onto the Warlord stuff, and like 5 minutes later you can't get it apart.
Right.
With this one, I put it onto that Rubicon plastic. It says ABS plastic, ABS glue. And like 2 hours later, I went and I pulled on the winch on that half track and it just came right off. But it's set now, but it took a long time.
Which glue are you using for it?
The what?
Which glue are you using?
Model Master PV or Model Master. It's for plastic glue, just generic plastic glue. But,
I'll avoid that when I start working on my Rubicons.
Yeah. Someone posted in the Facebook group that there's a thin, that stuff.
Yeah,
that's
this is the schnizzle.
Yeah, so that stuff works with the Rubicon then, huh? That cement.
Yeah,
okay.
It's ultra thin, so you have some play time with it, but so you can fiddle in with the small parts and everything to get dried up.
Okay. So keep that in mind, Ryan. That's Tamiya thin plastic cement for Rubicon stuff. So anyway, continuing on here, I have everything prime black. I'll go through and do my desert painting and then paint the American vehicles. They're olive drab, winterize them. Pretty simple. And then last thing I have is I got this. I got this now. And I just I got a white scout car, a Rubicon model that I'm going to give to these guys as a transport. And then I just ordered today from eBay a ZIS 2 winner and then a Dushka heavy machine gun winner. So plenty of Soviets. There's like 80 or 90 guys in there, plus machine gun, mortar, HQ. There's a KV1/KV2 in there as well. So plenty to do there.
Now, is that one of the older infantry kits where you have to put the weapons into the hand? Oh no.
Yeah. It's the old school one. So it's going to be a pain in the butt. Yeah. I'm going to take it slow though. It's going to be a side project. I'm not going to commit to it like I did to this 8th Army project. I'm just going through it, straight through. I'm going to do it like I did my last 2 winter armies, where it was kind of just in between other projects. I would do a squad or a vehicle, and it takes a long time that way, but it'll get done eventually. So move on here. See if I can see this. Is Ryan's here? So Ryan's got these guys here. These are the King's German Legion, correct?
Yeah, they're 1st Battalion light KGL.
Nice.
So
it looks like you got 1, 2, 3 groups for. I'm looking at them in a sharp practice with a sharp practice eye.
Yeah, I try to use them for both sharp practice and larger scale gaming, and then the skirmish groups are, for sharp practice.
Do they have rifles?
Some of them are rifle armed. The flank companies and one of the groups of skirmishers, and the rest of them are musket armed.
Cool. So how many more is this? Are you just starting this one out, or is this towards the end of the project?
Those are almost done. Actually, I just need to finish up the basing on them, and they'll be good to go.
Cool. Yeah, good stuff having sharp practice. Okay, so I got some of Greg's in here as well. I'm kind of afraid to show them the backwards. There we go. Okay. So I know some of these guys were Kentucky Rifles, but so what are these guys?
So these are they're from the War of 1812 and I can't remember the other period, but they're mounted Kentucky rifles with command. So the guy in the front left, the darker horse, he has a pistol. Everybody else has their rifles. And I found some historical pictures where one group was kind of wearing all the same leathers, the colors. So that was pretty easy. Rank and file painting is pretty easy. And you'll see, so these come from Old Glory 25s. You get 10 in a bag. if you get the Army membership, then it knocks the price down off 40%. So banging out these guys, all the horses, and I will tell you, I know people hate painting horses, but these are all airbrushed. These are all airbrushed. I have a little cheat sheet of different horses, paint schemes, and then I just pull out my Tamiya ready-made airbrush paint and just sit there and just go at it. The only thing that's not airbrush, obviously, would be like anything with the reins and the leathers on there. Those are all hand painted, but everything else is all airbrush. And I'm telling you, I could zip through these things in less than a half hour. So this is 10, and then you got the other set that you should have.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So these guys look a little more backwoodsy than the other guys. They're
they're also classes Kentucky mounted rifles, but I'm doing that AWI sharp practice campaign, the Swamp Fox, and all their militia guys have some options to be mounted. And I was like, that'd be really cool to do that. And this is the closest that I could get for the least cost. I mean, I could get the Perry stuff, but you're talking lots of money, and then the shipping and all the things that go along with that, But here, this is fast. I could order on a Monday, and they'll be in my mailbox by Thursday, and I'm airbrushing by Friday. So,
yeah, very cool. So more sharp practice stuff. So.
Oh yeah, so I've done a total of 30 now, and I think someone did a figure count for the Swamp Fox campaign. You need like 28 or 29 mounted guys, and I think I definitely achieved that. So,
that's not bad.
Yeah.
So that's what we're working on. So these guys are working on sharp practice. I'm sure you got other stuff going on too, but
yeah.
And I'm kind of doing World War II still. Seems like that's never ending. I keep telling myself I'm going to get away from World War II, and I buy a Soviet starter army. So it's hard.
There's no escape.
There's no escaping it. So let's go back real quick before we start here and look at our chat again. Let's see here. Okay. So it's Robert Delaney. That's who Facebook user is. Scott said the Churchill was a great tank. Yes. I've never used one in a game. It seems like it's got good armor.
It's a beast.
Yeah, I've used it in the Chain of Command before. That's pretty good.
Oh, yeah, I bet. What is the armor on it in Chain of Command?
10, and it's heavy armor.
10, okay. That's, yeah. So, I mean, even like a Panzerfaust or Panzerschreck is like armor 13. So that would even have a hard time punching through.
Yeah, it did.
So you got Chad Murray here. So Chad's the one that I bought all this Soviet stuff from. So I'll blame him for having such a good deal on it that I couldn't pass it up. E4 Airman said the Churchill's my favorite tank. So this guy, Archeon. Hello, Travis. Hope all is well. Sitting at work on second shift, working away. Well, there you go. What a better way to pass the time at work. Hello from Canada, says Ken C. Soviet winners need a lot of work. Okay, so yeah, Robert's now here. It looks like he's joined the Facebook or the YouTube live stream. All right, so let's continue on with our talk for Chain of Command versus Bolt Action. As I said at the beginning, I lost my notes. I had notes on where we left off. I can't find them. So we kind of agreed that we got through most stuff. I think we were at shooting and morale effects in both games, I think. If we go back and watch this later and we're wrong, then we apologize. But so we'll go with shooting. So obviously shooting is a huge part of any World War II game. That's what it's all about, is the shooting. I think we went over the weapons in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I really can't remember. I don't want to go over the same thing again, but I guess it doesn't really matter. So we'll briefly touch on weapons just in case we didn't. Again, I apologize for losing the notes, but so shooting, weapons are involved in that. And one thing that everyone knows about historical gaming, World War II gaming, is the beauty of it is that a rifle is a rifle. It doesn't matter what game you're playing, what scale you're playing in. There's no ray guns, there's no anything like that with all the different fancy stuff into some of the sci-fi games. It's just a rifle. There's some slight variations in rifles. I mean, there's the M1 Garand. It usually gets special rules in most games. I know in Chain of Command and Bolt Action, both games it does. In Chain of Command, it can re-roll once if you remember, which we rarely do. We've even put a thing right in our dice tray that said re-roll ones, and we still forget. So
yeah.
And then we always hear about it, and then we always forget. So that's how the M1 Garand works in Chain of Command. You re-roll ones, and then in Bolt Action, it gives you a minus, or you don't get the negative to hit while moving and shooting it. So both games, and probably any game like it, would differentiate the M1 Garand from the regular bolt action rifles. So other than that, machine guns, German machine guns usually get a special rule as well in most games, I think. Greg, is there a special rule for German machine guns in Chain of Command?
Not really. I think what the game system's trying to represent is the vast firepower it could push out. So that's 8 dice. If you like playing the Germans, you definitely want to get those LMGs online as soon as you can. As soon as you get them rocking, that's 8 dice, and some squads have 2 LMG teams. So that's 16 dice, and then whatever infantry guys you have with them, that's a lot of firepower. So the Germans is very unique like that. And then you have different countries that break down like magazine fed versus the Germans belt fed weaponry. I did want to mention also like the American or whoever's using a BAR, because playing this game and playing building other countries, the BAR is another one of those weapon systems for Chain of Command. You could reroll ones. So you got the GIs using their national characteristic of marching fire. That's a lot of firepower as they're moving. Reroll them ones, and you're right. You have to put like a note. You got to put like a dummy tag somewhere.
Right.
Reroll them damn ones.
Yeah, because you get in the heat of the moment. It's like, okay, you're rolling. Okay, I got so many hits. I'm gonna roll the wound, and then you forget.
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's a huge deal to reroll ones, because you're always gonna get a bunch of ones.
Yeah.
So you're missing out on hits big time if you miss out. But there's also machine gewehr, right? So that's not necessarily a weapon rule. It's more of a national rule for the Germans, where the NCO can add firepower to the German machine gun by directing its fire, or telling the guy exactly where to fire, or whatever's happening on the ground. It gives extra dice to the Germans.
Yeah, based off its his command ability. Yeah. So like a senior leader could jump on that team and throw 3 command points in there, and that's 3 more dice. So.
Yeah. So the machine guns are good in Chain of Command, better than they are in Bolt Action. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I just wanted to ask Ryan about what about in Bolt Action? Do the German machine guns get anything special?
Yep, they get a extra die for all of their machine guns. So light machine guns, medium machine guns on the all the medium machine guns that are on their tanks. So that extra die, I think, was the special rule in the book is called Hitler's Buzzsaw.
Right. Yeah, so that's nice. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, 1 dice, but when you're only rolling 4, and that's 25% more dice you're getting.
Yeah, and it adds up with some of those double machine guns.
Right. Yeah, and then you're getting 6 on the tripod mounted or the vehicle mounted machine gun, the medium machine guns, as opposed to 5 for the other nations.
So I got a question about, like, when I watch your games, Travis, like, again, I haven't played Bolt Action, so I kind of get confused because like in Chain of Command, we know for the most part 5s and 6s are going to hit no matter what, right? Unless you're within 18, then you're going to get the 4s, or unless you're shooting at green troops, you're going to get the 3s. I mean, it becomes, there's a a chain there. But for the most part, I know for a fact, 5s and 6s are going to hit, and all that, and unless you get some sort of like covering fire or whatever. But what do you need to hit? I could never figure that out, and I think I have like a first edition freebie book someone gave me, a bolt action. But what do you need to hit? Yeah, what do you need to hit with the machine guns and bolt action?
Well, with any weapon, I'll explain how shooting works in bolt action. So you're always starting at a base of 3 to hit. That's kind of your base number. And then there's modifiers for that, plus or minus. So you're starting with your 3. Each weapon has a range. And when you're over half the weapon's range, you're long range. So you add 1. Cover in bolt action is a modifier to the to hit roll. So if your target's in soft cover, it's plus or another -1 for you to hit. If they're in hard cover, it's another -1 for you to hit. There's also other ones like help me out here, Ryan. Is there small team?
Yeah, small team, down.
Down. That's a big one. Oh, close range. Close range is a plus modifier.
Plus so 1 if you're within 6.
Yeah, or within half the weapon range, I think it is.
Half the weapon range is just you don't get the penalty.
Right. So, but like a flamethrower is only a 6-inch range, and I think if you're at 6, you're still long range because you have to be within 3.
Yeah, I think we've struggled with that one a few times.
We have too, and I've heard it different ways. So, but anyway, yeah. So there's a lot of modifiers, Greg. I know it sounds like there's a lot, and there are, but
there is. Yeah.
After you play it a lot, I mean, you can just in your head just blow through them pretty fast. Yeah. So they're not like overwhelming.
So we all know in chain of command. So typically 5s and 6s are going to hit every time, but then the opposite in bolt action, where you're being penalized shooting troops in cover and all these other things. In chain of command, you're not being penalized. You're just throwing it on them. It's the defender is going to get the benefit of the cover, depending on the cover,
right?
And things like that. Yeah.
Chain of command cover is a modifier to your saving roll. Right. And in bolt action, it's a modifier to your to hit roll, the firing unit. And another big one I forgot was that pins.
Yeah,
so every pin that you have in bolt action is another -1 to hit. So if you have 3 or 4 pins, forget it. You're already starting out a -4. Yeah.
Jesus.
But there's a mechanic for that, which we can talk about when we get into the morale part. There's a rally you can do.
Okay.
But in chain of command, shock, it reduces the number of shots that you get. While in bolt action, the pin/shock affects your to hit roll. So
right.
Okay. So they're similar, but they're very different in that way, and especially the way cover works and saves, which we'll just throw into the shooting and weapons. We're kind of melting the shooting and weapons and saves all into this one big thing right now, since we lost our notes. But so the machine guns, very good. And the rifles, again, bolt action rifles are rifle. The only real difference is the Garand. Machine guns, the Germans are really the only ones that have a standout machine gun that I know of. I don't think any other country's machine guns do anything special. Do you guys know of any?
In chain of commands, the Bren gun for the British, there's one of the national characteristics that allow it to focus on one particular team.
Yes.
So I guess the Bren was so accurate that it actually struggled as a light machine gun.
Yeah, I've heard that. It didn't have the beaten area where the rounds would hit.
Yeah.
All the rounds would just land like in one little area. So
yeah.
But that's a great rule. It's seldom used by us. I know that, but I can see how it would be very effective especially if you have like an AT gun or something mixed in with a whole bunch of guys. Like in the last game that we played, I had my howitzer in there with 2 squads, and everything was just spreading. And it was very hard for Robert to get any hits on the gun, which was doing all the damage. But with that focus fire that the British have, if you can use it every time, you could just ignore the spreading of those hits among teams within 4 inches of that unit and just put everything onto it.
Yeah, it's good for picking on machine gun teams.
Machine gun teams or any kind of weapons team that you don't want to spread hits, because that's part of a big part of chain of command is spreading the hits around to nearby teams.
Yeah.
Which is like a huge, one of the biggest parts of the game, I think. So, okay, but that's more of that is also more like Machine Gewehr in that it's a command. It's not really weapon related. I mean, it is because the weapon's accurate.
Right.
But it's you have to give the command to do that. It doesn't just happen every time.
Hey, Travis, a thing that people tend to forget about, it's a very simple rule. So, like, if you have a weapon system, like, say, that half track you have for the Americans, the meat chopper, we got the 450s, right? Mm-hmm. So you would calculate in what the value of the one gun, the mounted gun, right? Which is typically, what, 6? Right? To shoot like a mounted machine gun off of a vehicle. And then you count each barrel plus 2. So on your meat chopper, you have 3 other barrels times 2, that's 6. So on your main gun, 6. So that's 12 dice you're rolling. And there are some weapon systems that are like on some of your early, I think your CS9 armor cars you showed in your pictures with the 2 machine guns, you would calculate the 1 machine gun and you add a plus 2 more dice for the secondary, things like that. So that's where you could build up your firepower. But people tend to forget about that because I know when I first got a Corgi 150th meat chopper, I was like, "This is cool. How do I use it?" You know, and it took a while on the forum to figure that out. But
yeah. Let's see here. Simon says, "How are snipers different?" So yeah, we'll talk about snipers. So we'll let Ryan start off by telling us about how snipers, or what are snipers like in bolt action.
Very hit or miss, for starters. So they ignore pretty much every penalty except for their own pins, and if they're missing their, I guess we can call them a loader, because they operate in 2-man teams. But they ignore cover. I believe they ignore down. So most of the time they're just hitting on a 3. And they're a longer range rifle, so they'll hit out to 36, but if they're within 12, they just fire as a normal rifle. So most of the time they're hitting on a 3, but that's about all you'll get is a pin.
Yeah.
I think in the last bat rep we did, I think a German sniper hit maybe 5 out of 6 times, and I don't think it killed anyone.
Yeah, it's tough, especially when they're veterans, because you need to roll that 5, which we'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about the saving throws. But yeah, so the bolt action snipers aren't that great. I mean, they can be because they can take out infantry weapon teams with 1 shot. So your medium machine guns, your mortars, they can 1-shot that whole team. And I think in the book, it kind of explains it as you're hitting the weapon or you're disabling the weapon somehow. Maybe you're you're punching a hole through the barrel of the mortar, or I don't know. That's the way they explain it. That's how they decided, hey, you can get rid of an entire weapons team. You can't do it to artillery. So any artillery gun can't be 1-shotted. You can just hit crew. But it is good for taking out weapons teams in bolt action. And that's what I try to use it for. If I do bring a sniper, which I don't very often, but if I do, if I can avoid the old sniper duel, I'll always go for a machine gun or a mortar or something a higher point unit that I can take out with 1 shot. Another part of the bolt action sniper is that they can pick out individual models in a unit. So there's a thing called, I always get this wrong. What is it called? Exceptional damage, I think. Is that right, Ryan?
Yes.
In bolt action, yeah. So it's exceptional damage. There's a couple ways to get it. A sniper always gets it if he hits, and if you roll a 6 followed by a 6 and then followed by another 6, when you're rolling your to wound rolls, you get it as well. It just lets you pick out the unit in or the model in the squad that you want to take out. So snipers always get it. So you can pick off machine guns, you can pick off NCOs.
It's good for
anything
taking
like
out lieutenants.
Lieutenants, that's always a good one to do. If the person cares, sometimes people don't even care about their lieutenants. They just, they buy an inexperienced lieutenant for the cheapest points possible, and like just whatever. But chain of command, you'll see that. Lieutenant is like the most important guy on the board. So
until they have that notorious 1-pin order.
Right. Yeah. So snipers, Greg, what about snipers and chain of command?
So snipers, again, with bolt action, it could be a hit and miss depending if you got the tabletop CP dice rolling with you to get them going. Sometimes they just, you can never get enough ones to activate them. But when they deploy, they deploy 12 inches from any jump off point. And then to activate them, you need a 1 to get them going. In order for them to move, you got to use a chain of command dice. So where you put them down is where they're should be staying, covering a good avenues of approach and things like that. The best shots. I'll show you guys. So if people know anything about me, I'm not a house rule person. I don't modify anything in the gameplay. It's as is. If I got 6 phases in a row as a double turn, so be it. A lot of people don't like that. But anyways, so what I do with the snipers, there's always an exception to the rule. And I picked it up from one of my other gaming buddies, Adam. When he first introduced my buddy Slat and I into chain of command, is when you have a sniper, don't put them on the table. Just mark it down. I mean, we trust our gaming friends. We shouldn't. You shouldn't be playing with someone you don't trust. But so they put them down. We don't put the sniper down, and then all we say is a shot rings out, and then we're rolling the dice. It's very easy to hit. It's a 50-50 shot, so you need a 3. Cover's ignored. If someone in that team or squad gets hit, then you have to roll for a save. If it turns to be a kill, it's a kill. If it's a shock's going to be double. If you have anybody on Overwatch in that somewhat direction, so this is where your opponent you're playing will say, "Yep, your guys are looking at them." Then they have an opportunity to roll a dice to see if they can react to that sniper fire by rolling a 6. And then if you keep that team or machine gun team or squad on Overwatch in consecutive phases, and a shot keeps ringing out every time that sniper shoots, then the die roll will drop down to a 5 or 6, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so forth. Eventually, he's going to be spotted. And once he's spotted, then we put the figure on the table, and then it's all hell breaks loose because now this guy has blown his cover and he's ready to go. I typically don't play with the sniper. I have other points to use than him, unless I have the British Airborne, because then you get 2 Joes and ghillie suits already built into the snipers.
They're part of the platoon, yeah.
Yeah, so hell yeah.
But they still deploy and activate and everything the same way. But I think maybe I've taken a sniper twice in all the games I've played in chain of command.
Yeah.
They're not very good in bolt action. I think they're even worse in chain of command. I mean, you do get a slight bonus to do some kind of exceptional damage, as in take out a leader. Mm-hmm. Isn't it? You get +1 to the roll or something. If you get a kill when you're rolling for leader, it's +1, I think, to that. Yeah. But if you're only getting 1 kill, then it's still you're only killing a leader on a 2+ or a 2 or under. So it's still not great. And if you have other team weapons, like maybe a 2-inch mortar or something that doesn't have a senior leader around it, then you're using all your 1s for that, which also means you're not being able to use your 1s to make 2s and 3s or 4s. So it's not an expensive unit in chain of command. I think it's like 2 points, 2 support points, but at the same time,
if you
I
only
don't
have
think it's
6 points to play with, you have 2 points is a lot of points.
right. And
You
you can
know?
get a 2-inch mortar for 2 points.
Yeah. But
Which
this
is
I think this
decently low.
adds to the intrigue. With us not placing the model on the table initially, it adds that intrigue. Like, damn, where can that sucker be? Could it be in the barn? Could it be in the atypical bell tower of the
Right.
church?
No, that's a good idea. Yeah.
And then
Because putting him on the board is, I mean,
because
it's
you're
the
still
old,
focusing. You're still you know
you
he's
know where
there,
he
but
is.
he's not there.
Right.
You guys should try that out. It's something different. My oldest son Dan, he's been gaming since he was like probably like 5 years old. So he loves these games. And when I play against him, he'll throw a sniper out there, and I was like, man, where the hell is he? Because I'm thinking the possible logical choices. So I'm dropping smoke in front of a building window or somewhere, where I think logically where he's going to be at. And when I finally detect him, when I have to roll like, I'm down to 3, he puts a sniper out, and it's in the middle of the damn road in a ditch. And I was like, oh my God, really? But that adds
yeah,
to the intrigue because you just don't
Yeah.
know.
They just have to be in cover, right?
Yeah.
What about you? Have you used a sniper, Ryan, in Chain of Command very often?
I've used them, I think, mostly with the airborne platoons. So having those, you just get the 2 snipers, and I think if anything, you're more just playing head games with your opponent. Because are the snipers very effective? No, not normally, but they could be. When suddenly your command and control starts breaking down.
Right.
So
No,
they could use their Overwatch to fire at a unit that just ran across the road, or they could keep trying to find the sniper. So it forces your opponent to make choices like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, because it's, even though I say snipers aren't that effective, whenever I've faced one, it always kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah.
You had an opponent in bolt action that was probably the most effective sniper I've ever seen. Was the Russian one that fired one shot, blew up the truck, killed like 3 other people in it.
Yeah, that was
one shot, 1 kill. No, watch this.
Yeah, hold my beer. I'm gonna blow up a truck. Yeah, that guy was. Yeah, that was the best sniper ever. So okay, so that's snipers. What else we got here? We're in shooting again. I'm kind of disorganized tonight, but we're still in shooting and weapons. Let's go through the weapons. We've gone through most of the infantry. Submachine guns in both games are very similar. They just get extra dice, shorter range, nothing super special. In bolt action, they give you tough fighter, which is better in close combat. You get to reroll hits in close combat. Chain of command, you get a couple extra dice for having an SMG as well in close combat. What other weapons are we missing here? Maybe we get some people in
the assault rifles.
Yep.
Assault rifles.
Yeah, they're limited. They only go out to 48 inches in chain of command, but you got some of those Fallschirmjägers with the FG-42 or anybody else with an assault type rifle going in to close that gap. So like you were talking about playing what's the winter one you're playing?
Bloody Bucket.
Bloody Bucket, right. So when you got the Volkskronier with assault rifles, well, that's a whole different thought process on playing those guys, because look at their weapon system, right? You have to use your weapon system the most effective way, and the most effective way is you got to close that gap. And the only way to close that gap is someone's going to have to eat it and to max out your dice roll, because 0 to 18 inches is 3 dice compared to 18 to 48 is 1 dice. Well, that's stupid.
Right.
If you're running around with assault rifles, so you have to get in within 18. You have to close the gap. And I know in Bloody Bucket, there's a lot of maps that have a lot of open ground to cover. A lot of open ground.
Yeah, and that I've been looking at that Bloody Bucket. It's kind of giving me a headache just looking at all the maps, man. I might need your help to sort that out, because I'm looking at that like, what the hell?
Yeah, I played it twice. Yeah, I played it twice.
Well, that's good.
Once against my oldest son, I played the Americans and he was the Germans, and then I played it with Slat, where I was the Germans and he was the Americans. And you definitely got to think outside the box to utilize their effective, the effectiveness of their weapon, which is 3 dice within 18 inches.
Cool. All right, Ryan, bolt action assault rifles. What's the deal?
Yeah, they're a little bit shorter. I think it's still one shot.
2 shots.
I don't use them.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this one.
Yeah, I'm not a German player, so I don't really have access to them.
Okay. Well, pretty much in bolt action or assault rifles, it's also a assault weapon, so it gives you tough fighter again. It gives you an extra reroll any successful hit in close combat. Again, no movement penalty for shooting. Same with these SMG. Then you get 2 shots at 18-inch range. So that's pretty much assault rifles in bolt action. Version 1, they were a lot better. They were 24-inch range. They're now 18, but they were so good in version 1 that they toned them down because they were a no-brainer for anyone trying to play any kind of competitive bolt action. You would just load up as many assault rifles as you could in whatever squad you could, and you had the same range as a rifle. You got 2 shots. You didn't have the movement penalty, and you had tough fighter. It's like,
Jesus.
Okay, why wouldn't you take this? So they dropped the range 6 inches to try to make it better. I think they even raised the points. I think it was only 3 points back in version 1 too. I may be wrong on that, but they definitely had to nerf those because they were way out of control. So let's see here. So moving on from those, we'll look at Scott said flamethrowers. So this is a good one. They're good in both games. I'll let these guys describe them, but I know for a fact they're better in chain of command than they are in bolt action. We'll start with bolt action with Ryan and flamethrowers.
It's probably one of the best anti-tank weapons in the game.
Yeah.
You get up close. That's kind of what I use it for, is trying to take out heavy German armor. And usually doesn't make it to the target, but it has most of the enemy force shooting at that small team the whole turn. So I think the infantry carried one you roll the hit as normal. Still kind of a question as to whether or not the 6 inches gives it both long range penalty and point blank. But if you do hit, it's, I believe, 1d6 hits. It ignores cover. It ignores down. And I think it's a +3 penetration. Either +2 or +3. Can't remember off the top of my head.
I think it's +3. Isn't it 3 + 1, or is that the pins?
The pins. The pins, I think, are D3 + 1, and you have to immediately make a morale test.
Yeah, and that's where the
brutal.
That's the anti-tank part, because the +3 isn't going to take out a heavy tank. What's going to take out a heavy tank is that D3 + 1 pin,
and then the
immediate morale tests, and that's what makes
nobody likes being set on fire.
Oh, it'll take out anything except the stubborn troops, which I think the FAQ I think gave stubborn troops. They don't have to take the morale test or something. I forgot exactly what it was, but it made them better against flamethrowers.
Yeah, when they take the morale tests, stubborn, you don't take pins into account. So it's just a normal, like you were doing a rally test.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so it's pretty good. It's very good in bolt action. I mean, in version 1, it auto hit, which was even better because it was just an auto. If you got within 6, it's an automatic D6 hits, automatic pins, automatic morale test. That's something else they nerfed.
Yeah, it can run out of ammunition or run out of fuel though.
Yes.
I think it's if you roll a 1 after you fire it, it's out of fuel and it just runs off the table.
Yep. And you can also put it in a squad, which is the best way to run it.
Yes.
In my experience, individual flamethrower team in a Jeep or something's good. Easy targets usually. But if they're in a squad and they're veterans, a bunch of engineers, my famous unit, Der Hammer, is a bunch of German engineers, pioneers, submachine guns, flamethrower team veterans, Panzerfaust outflanking in a truck with a machine gun or like a Stummel or something even. And that's like an amazing unit. And it's the Death Star unit of bolt action. So run it in the squad. It's a lot more survivable. It can still be sniped by a sniper, but again, you got to roll a 5 with the sniper to kill it. So yeah, so great unit in bolt action, Greg, and even better unit in chain of command, I would say.
Oh yeah. If you're able to, yeah, and depending on the environment, again, if you're close quarters, getting in buildings, or like Ryan said, hey, there's some armor rolling around, and if you're able to sneak up or whatever. But flamethrowers are pretty good. They only get 3 squirts, or 3 bursts. Max is 12 inches. 9 to 12 inches is their range. When they hit, cover's all ignored, so whoever's on the receiving end are rolling to save as in the open, and all shock is double, so it could be very potent. I'm telling you guys, if you don't have your tabletop CP dice, you need to get them. 5s and 6s all days. But anyways, very deadly, but you can refuel them. There's a mechanic in the game system where you go back to the jump off point. You have to roll the dice to see if supplies are available, and then you could go. If not available, then you got to go to another jump off point. So make those things count. Plus or minus, do I keep the flamethrower guys with the squad to spread out hits? That might be worth it as you're moving up as a whole group. Just got to be careful if they're by themselves and the other opponent has a sniper, then let's start targeting those guys. If they're more than 4 inches away, then you could slowly whittle out that flamethrower team before he even gets a shot. And then you have the Flampanzer wagons.
Oh,
Christ.
man. Yeah.
36 inches.
Yeah.
36 and 3 feet. If you're playing on a 6x4 table, you're covering about 75% of that damn table. Very deadly, unlimited. But typically they're not on very good vehicles, like a Panzer II, or if you have the 251 with the 2 little side guys with the nozzles, or even like the Churchill has one. Well, Churchill's a very good tank too, so that might be the good one.
Churchill flamethrower.
Heavy armor.
Yeah,
the crocodile.
There you go. I still got to build that damn model. But
we should do a whole scenario around trying to take out a crocodile.
Oh, there you go. Well, in a game, you figure out a good scenario. And I was reading a story about how they work in unison with the AVREs. Mm-hmm. So they got that giant, big ass mortar that they're shooting out the front, or that's attached to the turret, and they shoot like every other turn. And then as they're pounding the entrenchments or works or bunkers, and then you have the crocodile rolling up and just squirting everything else. So they work in unison. So if you're able to, that's deadly.
AVRE and a crocodile on the same table.
Yeah, that's
support points would that be? That'd be a lot.
Probably close to 20 support points.
Yeah. But hopefully, when you're rolling 12 dice, again, that's the dice thing. And if they have any shock, again, shock's going to play a factor, eliminating the dice, and stuff like that. But hopefully you can move them on. When you start looking at your opponent, it's like, who's that guy? Oh shit! It's a damn flamethrower. So now your focus, because nobody wants to be torched.
Well, we had a house rule. I know you don't like house rules, Greg, but we had to make a house rule at one point where we couldn't have flamethrower defensive player, no flamethrower ambush.
Really? Yeah, that's right. You guys don't do the flamethrower ambush.
It got to the point where no one would move. If someone had a chain of command dice and you knew they had a flamethrower, you just wouldn't go up. It's like, okay, what am I going to move up for? I'll just get ambushed by a flamethrower and die. And so eventually we said, okay, well, actually, it's neither side could do a flamethrower ambush. It just wasn't possible. So, I don't know. We played a game not that long ago, that Italian game, where I did have a flamethrower firing off point blank right into a building with a bunch of Andre's guys, and it did not do that much. It fired 3 times.
Yeah.
And
not very
game
good die
kinda,
roll. Yeah, I think the
yeah, I'll
die
go
rolls were
on.
pretty bad. Yeah,
They were bad die rolls, so I don't know.
But
yeah,
you were
It's all over the
firing a
place.
flamethrower into a brick building. That's where you need the AVRE to just collapse the whole building. You
yeah,
can't set it on
Yeah.
fire. You need to drop it.
yeah.
Yeah. If I
But
had an AVRE, I would have done that.
but I
These are
mean,
the Italian.
yeah. Well, a chain of command again. If you look at the basic fundamental tactics, using Overwatch with the flamethrower team, so if someone were to pop out to try to take out the flamethrower team, at least his support can protect him, and then the reverse. This is where the Overwatch comes into play. So yeah, if flamethrower comes out on ambush, he may not survive his little surprise. You probably lose a vehicle or whatever, but at least you have the ability to counter him immediately. With your Overwatch. And there's a lot of games I see, not just yours, but a lot of games I see in general where there's no smoke in the game, there's no Overwatch, there's no covering fire, and things like that. And those things, and what we do is we put a little pile of those little markers because, like you said, we get into the heat of the game. You're rolling dice, and you kind of forget about, oh shit, I should have threw a smoke, or I should have put my guys
Yeah.
on Overwatch. Covering fire is like a gimme. If normally junior leaders have an extra command point, is like, okay, put these guys on covering fire, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. So flamethrower is good in both games. Better in chain of command, I think. But
Yeah.
very good. And there is a flamethrower tanks in bolt action as well. They have, but only a 12-inch range, and I think they're pretty much the same as infantry. And I think the tanks have like a +1 if you shoot them, damage on the damage roll if you hit them or you penetrate them or something. It's because they
Yeah,
have all that fuel in there.
I used my crocodile in the last bat rep we did, and it was pretty effective.
Does bolt action, the infantry flamethrower, does they have a limit, or is it unlimited squirts?
After
roll-
each time you shoot, yeah, you got to roll a d6. If you roll a 1, you run out of ammo.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So flamethrowers. Let's see here. How about let's talk about howitzers, HE, and let's throw in anti-tank guns with that as well. So, Greg, why don't you start out and just tell us how does HE work in chain of command, and how do howitzers? Is there a template? Is there no template? How do they work in chain of command?
So howitzers or anything with HE is your friend, especially if you're fighting against those troops that are elite. A lot of people like to throw those out there because it makes it tougher to hit them. But HE is the equalizer along the whole table for everybody. And you need 4, 5s, or 6s. Reduces cover. So if you're behind a stone wall, for example, that's going to reduce it down to light cover as opposed to heavy cover. Plus, if you're behind stone wall, shock's going to be double because of the fragmentation from the stone. A lot of people forget about that. HE could drop a building. You get 3 6s or more. There's some factors involved. If you're in a building, when your tank or whatever infantry gun hits, and all of a sudden you're rolling a Yahtzee of 6s, that buildings is probably going to be gone, which is good. So there's an ability to reduce the coverability that those guys are in. HE is like I said, that's the equalizer. So if you're running an infantry game, if you're the Germans, get the IE-18. Americans get some sort of HE. You always got to have some sort of HE ability somewhere. Anti-tank rifle, that's not going to do nothing.
No.
That's more early war stuff. But if
Yeah.
you want to really
I
run
think the
around,
boys is HE1,
yeah,
if that,
yeah,
or maybe it's no HE. I don't even know. It's
get a light. I'm telling you that German
light
18,
howitzers are good. It's 6
yeah,
HE. Same for the 75 mil American
yeah.
howitzer, and the British. Do they have that same pack howitzer, or they have a 25 pounder?
I think,
Yeah, the British 25 pounder.
yeah.
What is a 25 pounder like millimeter wise? Does anyone know what that is? 75 mil. I know Scott would probably know. he's still here. I always hear it referred to as 25 pounder, but I really, it sounds big, but I think it's probably not that big because it's classed as like a light howitzer and
Yeah. Well, what's good about those guns, like the light guns, and I use I-18 because every time I'm fielding a German army, if I got the points, I'm gonna probably buy that because one, it's very effective. Two, it's considered a light anti-tank gun, which means you can move it pretty fast. Um, and I've played one game where I rolled that some bitch halfway down the damn city street and still rocking it, and that's what it does. That's what's supposed to do is those light guns. Um, sometimes
right.
bigger is not better because then you're stuck there if you had to move it. Um,
Yeah, and movement wise, the in chain of command to move a light howitzer like that, is it's 2d6 remove the lowest, right?
I'm looking right now my little cheat sheet. Okay, so manhandling weapons. So light guns. Yeah, move 2d6. You don't drop anything. Medium
Really?
guns. You move 2d6. Drop the lower dice. Large guns. 2d6. You drop the high dice.
Okay.
So the light guns is
Did
your
not know that.
typical 25 millimeter, 37, 45 millimeter guns. Infantry
Yep.
guns for like the I-18. Yeah, they move straight 2d6, which is like
Oh, nice. Yeah, I
super.
did not know that. We were
Yes.
removing the lowest for those two, but yeah,
Oh
that
yeah.
makes a lot of sense because that's what they're designed for, right? Just a
Yeah.
couple of guys grab it and it's got the big wheels and just run off with it. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen lots of footage of those guys running with one of those things before.
Yeah. If you look at the frame, it's a straight back solid frame. It's not like your typical gun with the where the back wings are coming out or the support braces. This is a solid straight with handles. So if you've seen any footage, you see those German guys just pick up the back handle, two guys, and they're running with it with another guy
Right.
guiding it in the front. So
Yeah.
yeah, I got my little cheat sheet here. So yeah, so
Cool.
2 dice, you don't have to drop anything for light guns.
Cool. So yeah, so chain of command HE is good. It's good in both games, but it reduces cover by 1 level. It's always hitting on a 4, 5, or 6. I'm assuming if there was covering fire on it, though, it'd probably be -1 to hit if you were
Yeah.
covering fire on a gun.
Smoke grenades, stuff like that.
Smoke grenades, or shooting through smoke grenades. Smoke grenades in chain of command are a -1 to hit, not block line of sight like they used to be.
Yeah.
Which is good because we played in the old days when smoke grenades block line of sight and they were everywhere. Couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
So they changed that in the FAQ to just be a -1 to hit. So okay, so what about we'll let Ryan is obviously the bolt action guy tonight, so we'll let him talk about HE and howitzers and bolt action.
Best way to take out an infantry squad. So in bolt action, it uses templates, and the size of the template is dependent on the HE rating. So you have HE1, 1 inch, through HE4, which is a nice big 4-inch blast. And the larger the blast, the larger the penetration is on it. So it's easier to kill infantry. And it's just, you roll to hit. If you hit, you put that blast marker down, and anything under the blast marker, that's the number of dice you roll with the plus whatever to pin, or penetrate rather. And like nice +2, +3 makes it really easy to kill off veterans.
Yeah. Especially guys who aren't spread out. That was another change between version 1 and 2 is version 1, which we didn't really like the change. Version 1, it had the different HE had different number of D6. So like a light HE would be D6 hits, a medium would be 2D6 hits, and then 3D6 hits. So that made it a little bit easier to play because you didn't have to worry about spreading out. You could bunch your guys up behind a building or whatever and not worry about it. Now you got to spend time spreading your squad out so that 1 2-inch template doesn't hit like 8 guys. So that we thought that slowed the game down. I prefer it the other way personally, but that's the way they went. So there's no templates in chain of command. It does the you roll the number of dice assigned to that weapon, and whatever 4+ you get, that's a hit. So it's definitely a lot more streamlined that way than the templates, which I prefer no templates. But yeah, in bolt action, like Ryan was saying, the HE is the best weapon in the game as far as I'm concerned. You can take out a full squad of veterans if you hit them right. If you got a decent sized gun and they're bunched up, what a bunch of riflemen couldn't do, one medium howitzer could do. It'll just, with one shot, it'll take it out. So it's on vehicles, on just regular artillery platforms. The HE is amazing, and it's amazing in both games. But I'd have to give the edge to HE being better in bolt action, just because it's easy to kill stuff. It adds multiple pins at once, and yeah, it's very effective in that game. So
absolutely, especially if you start running different list selectors where you can take multiple mortars, and then you take a light howitzer in your kind of your artillery slot, and you're just throwing tons of templates downrange.
Yeah, I find myself having to because I can pack there's a way to pack lots of HE in. I mean, you can bring one in the tank slot, you can bring one in the artillery slot, you can bring a mortar. So Chad just said heavy mortars are amazing. They are 3-inch template as opposed to a 2-inch template for heavy mortar. So a heavy mortar is a 3-inch template plus 3 penetration. So it's killing veterans on anything but.
And it is good for digging infantry out of buildings.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's so yeah, HE super good in bolt action, but still really good in chain of command. It's just that you need a lot more of it. Smaller HE weapons can be a nuisance in chain of command. It's hard for a HE weapon to just obliterate anything outright, unless it's like that IG or SIG 33.
Oh, yeah, 33, yeah. But also
it's got like 13 HE.
Also, too, in chain of command, so if you have multiple weapon systems that could shoot HE, and you got somebody or a squad team or whatever in a building, and you shoot that IE-18, and out of your 6 dice or whatever, you get 2 6s, right? If you have if you have the correct command dice, if you have another HE weapon system with you, you shoot that in there and you get the third 6 or more, that building is in trouble. That phase only. It doesn't carry over to the next phase. So that's something to consider. A lot of people don't take that into account, because at one point we were playing with a lot of buildings and I was like, shit, we're never going to get them out of there. But when you read into the rules, it's like, yeah, multiple HE rounds of 6s within the single phase.
Okay, that makes sense, and it definitely makes it a lot more likely to take down a building, because getting them all at once, unless you got a really high HE weapon, is
like the SIG 33 or something. Yeah.
So okay, so let's see here. Sean's here. It says HE lays the pins on. Yes, the bigger the HE, the more pins. Like a 4-inch template's like B6 pins, so we can add a lot of pins to it, to stuff and vehicles. So that's why HE weapons or HE tanks are kind of my go-to, even against other tanks. I noticed I was watching Ryan's game today while I was supposed to be working, just for my lunch break.
Yeah.
And I saw there's a howitzer took out the Puma, right? So it's I mean, the Puma is like a light tank still, but still, it can take it out, and even if it can't take it out outright, it can cause D3 plus or more pins. And once something has 3 pins on it in bolt action, forget it. It's almost impossible to activate. So you have to rally. So you're essentially taking it out of the game for like a turn at least, just by hitting it with an artillery piece that doesn't have a good chance to take it out. You still have a good chance to.
Or any tank that fired its pintle and suddenly becomes open topped. You hit it with every direct fire HE weapon you can find.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, so HE is good, great in bolt action, good in chain of command, great in bolt action. What other vehicles we got? Oh, AT guns. AT guns, in my opinion, they're not great in bolt action. They're super good in chain of command. They're amazing in chain of command for what doing what they're supposed to do. Bolt action, they're okay. They can throw out some HE. The bigger the AT gun, the bigger the template, but still it's always scaled down one. So like a heavy AT gun's got a medium medium HE template. So it's obviously they had to do that because they can't have both. They can't have it be good at both. So we'll start with Greg. Just briefly go over AT guns and chain of command.
So anti-tank guns are good. They come with crews of 5. Almost all anti-tank guns and chain of command are crew of 5. Depending what nationality they are, you may even get a bonus, a junior leader with 2 command initiatives, which is like super great. Some other countries don't give you a leader. I think the Russians don't give you nothing. But like the Germans always come with a leader, which is very significant, especially if you're getting shot at and you're crewing that shock. You can take that off. And that's the beauty in chain of command is the multiple command dice. To activate an anti-tank gun is considered to be a team. So either a die roll of 1 or a die roll of 3. Typically, the 3 is to activate the junior leader, which you could do 2 command initiatives. Take off a shock and fire, or you use a 1 and all you're doing is shooting. That's all you're doing. The thing about the anti-tank gun too is putting it in a good position already in cover, because the chain of command gives the shield, however big it is or small, it provides a level of cover. So if you're in the tree line, the anti-tank gun is going to give you light cover, and being in the tree line will give you heavy cover. So that's definitely significant. And if you don't have no cover, definitely get some entrenchments. They're very cheap. I think they're a point. And so if you have to put something out there, put entrenchments around it to protect it. Because once that sucker comes out, it's like it's on radar. Everybody wants to shoot the shit out of it, just because of what it can do. Especially if your opponent is bringing in vehicles or things of that nature, then there's always gunfire on an AP or on an anti-tank gun. So you got to be careful bringing it out. You don't want to. That shouldn't be your first piece to put out on the table. That should be somewhere in the middle. Once you kind of gauge what's coming out on the table, and if you're able to sustain any hits coming in by placing it with other infantry squads or teams or something like that. But
that's a critical thing, is bring something with it.
Yeah.
That's one of the main rules in chain of command, is try not to bring stuff out by itself in where it can get ganged up on, because then you're going to get messed up. And same goes for AT guns, howitzers, anything. You want to bring a squad with it, the support squad, and it acts as a bullet sponge to help you spread the hits out. So multiple team squads are even better, because you spread more hits out. If a German squad is next to a gun, you're spreading out 3 ways. If you're a Soviet, you're only spreading out 2 ways. So, but they're super good in chain of command.
That leader is also critical.
Survivable.
Because, with the leader, if you have an anti-tank gun team with a leader, very critical, especially if there's a vehicle on the other end that you're going to shoot at. He could throw 1 command initiative in there to help your die roll a -1. So if they're in the open, you need a 5. With the leader giving his command initiative, now you need a 4 to hit.
Yeah, and then he can pull shock.
And he can pull shock, yeah. So
shock is always a -1 to hit against vehicles as well.
Yeah.
So it's a double bonus having a leader. And just having a leader is amazing, but there's always the chance he gets hit, which is a bad thing. But you're better off having him. I'd rather have a leader and take the chance of him getting a hit than not having a leader. So AT gun good. So what about bolt action, Ryan? They're not as good, I think.
No, not as good. I have had some luck with them, and it usually involves putting them on ambush, and then the other player just forgets about it eventually until their tank explodes.
Right.
Um,
Or it stops them from, or they don't forget about it and they are afraid
Yeah.
to shut down that part of the board with your
yeah,
AT gun.
and then suddenly their tank is only effective on half the board.
Right.
But it's really it's a pretty reliable way of taking out enemy armor. Like they do their job. I think there's better ways of doing it, like just taking a tank of your own. But some of the bigger ones, they throw out a little bit of HE, direct fire. It's got the gun shield, which does make it harder to kill the crew. But for the most part, they're not terribly worth it.
Yeah, and they're expensive.
Yeah, they are a little
really
overpriced.
Yeah, because a howitzer is like, I don't know if it's half the price, but it's a lot cheaper to get a medium howitzer than it is a medium AT gun, I think.
And I know the 25-pounder is both a light howitzer and a light anti-tank gun. And I think there might be a few Soviet anti-tank guns that are also howitzers.
I think there's just 3.
The divisional guns.
Yeah, which is nice, but I mean, I'd almost always shoot it as a howitzer. I guess if I was having to shoot at a tank and there was no other targets, I would switch to the HE or the AP. But normally I would always choose to use HE, even against vehicles, just because you get 1 dice. I mean, it's a lot easier to hit a vehicle in chain of command than it is in bolt action. Because bolt action, you got the 1 dice, you got to do all the modifiers. Chain of command, I mean, you're rolling like a base of 5 on 2d6, which is not that hard to do.
Yep.
And you can make it a 4 on 2d6 with the junior leader adding focus fire, and then there's tons of modifiers in chain of command for vehicles as well with the flat out if you hit it before, and if you got shock, there's a lot of modifiers for vehicles. I like the vehicle to hit roll stuff in chain of command a lot better than I do in the bolt action. It's also very it looks cumbersome when you're first looking at the chart. Like, man, there's like all these modifiers and all these different things, but all these charts for how many net hits. But once you play it a few times, it's pretty intuitive, and you just know by what you roll. Okay, I got 2 net hits. You look it up real quick, and it's pretty cool. So I do prefer the chain of command vehicle rules for sure to bolt action, which is funny because I think even Big Rich himself said chain of command was not in a vehicle game, and the vehicle rules are kind of just like tacked on, but I like them. So
yeah,
for being tacked on, pretty on point.
And it's vehicles. We'll talk about vehicles real quick. So I just kind of did at least the shooting part, moving vehicles. I think we went over that in the first video, I think.
Yeah, we talked about movement.
And so really, I mean, I guess vehicles, both of them have, well, chain of command's got, it's not as broken down like bolt action is. And bolt action, light tank, medium tank, heavy tank. Chain of command doesn't have that necessarily. It just gives each tank its own armor value. And I guess some tanks are considered heavy. There's a rule. Better armor around, I believe.
Yeah,
to get inside or the rear.
And some can't move flat out. But yeah, and then vehicles, like you said, in chain of command, like if you have anything that's wheeled, it has to be 4 wheels, or if it's a motorcycle, 3 wheels, or 2, whatever. But so when it comes on the table, it comes on the road, and it doubles. And then there's some modifiers if you're on the road and things like that. And for track vehicles, the same thing. You roll your dice, either 1, 2, or 3. 3 being flat out, you just can't make any 90-degree turns. That's pretty much it.
Right.
And that's actually a flat out for any type of vehicle is like a saving grace. That's a freebie -1 to hit you. Whoever's going to shoot at you with with their anti-tank rifle or gun.
There's other ones too.
Yeah, and just go flat out and always be in cover. And don't.
Yeah.
You see these games and people get upset because they're trying to do some sort of fury thing where they're all out in the open, and it's like, oh my god.
Right. You have low profile. You got small. Isn't there one even called small? Like small and low profile are two different things, I think. Some are both. So if you're moving flat out on a small, low profile vehicle, it's -3 right there.
Yeah.
If you're in cover, that's more. I mean,
and sometimes we forget too.
Are obscured. How much you're obscured. Bolt action for vehicles, is the vehicle in cover, and that's also obscured. So you have to be like half obscured or something like that. Is that right, Ryan?
Yeah, it's usually at least, I think, 50% of the vehicle.
And does the type of cover matter? Or is it just the amount of the vehicle? Like if you're obscured in a cornfield versus obscured like half behind a wall or something, a brick wall, is that?
We've always played it as like soft cover, hard cover.
Just based on what you're hiding behind?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's more, is it obscured or is there a building in the way?
Okay. Because I mean, you could be obscured by leaves or you could be obscured by a concrete wall.
Yeah.
And I don't remember in bolt action if that matters. I guess it does. Like what you're obscured behind makes a difference. So if you're obscured halfway behind a wall, you're getting hard cover. If you're obscured in some bushes, you're getting soft cover, which makes sense.
Yeah.
For some reason couldn't remember that. So anyway, vehicles, I think we covered movement in those. Shooting, they pretty much have the same weapons we already talked about, HE, AT guns, machine guns. Mm-hmm. To hit up to armor rolls or in bolt action, there's a penetration value for the weapon and an armor value. You roll, if you hit it, you roll a d6, you add your penetration value of the weapon. If it meets or exceeds the vehicle's armor, it does something. If it meets it, it's a glancing hit, or I forget what exactly the term is.
It's superficial damage, I think.
Yeah. So, and then there's a chart you roll on, and if you get equal to, you -3 on whatever you roll, and that's what you get on the chart. It's pretty easy it's 50-50 on the chart. If you roll a 4+, the vehicle's dead. So it's not like chain of command where there's tons and tons of different ways of things that can happen when you hit a vehicle. In bolt action, you kill it on a 4+, on a 3+, it catches on fire, which is good because it's an automatic morale test, kind of like a flamethrower. And then 2, it's immobilized, and 1, it's just stunned, which is two pins. All of them are going to give you 2 pins.
Yeah, for chain of command, I'm just looking at my quick reference sheet. There's 9 modifiers, and there's probably about 4 of them that apply to the fire. So if the fire has moved, that's an issue. If another tank has a sight damage, that's another issue. But there's also some positives. If you hit it last time, maybe you didn't damage it, but if you hit it, which means you got the base value to hit number, that's a plus. Of course, adding the leader's command initiative into it is a plus. So yeah, there's not very many, and we played enough games to be honest, which is very rarely we even look at the reference sheet charts. But yeah, so there's either you're in the open, you're partially obscure, which says right here view is less than 50%, and then if you're badly obscure, more than 50% is obscured. So it could be subjective, but I mean, depending on who you're playing with, it's very easy to figure out if you're either 5, 7, or 9 to hit, and then you add in the modifier. So,
and then when you hit something, there's multiple charts for chain of command for vehicle damage. There's equal hits and saves. There's 1 net hit, 2 net hits, and 3 net hits, and then those are even broken down by type of vehicle. So a soft skin, an armored car, transport, and a tank armored car. So there's a lot of charts, but I mean, when you have that quick reference sheet, it's easy to look up. You roll, if you hit, you roll your dice for your armor, you roll your dice for your armor penetration. Whoever gets more, you need 5s or 6s mostly. And if you get more than your opponent, you win. So if you get more saves than hits, it just bounces off. If you get more hits than saves, however many you get, 1, 2, or 3, that's what chart you would look up. and 3, I believe, is always destroyed. And two net hits means something pretty bad happened, like the gunner got killed, the driver got killed. 1 net hit is sort of bad, take some shock, you reverse. Equal hits is not that bad. It can be, because you can reverse on it, but usually it's not like the end of the world. So it kind of goes by how bad it is how many penetrating hits made it through, if that makes any sense at all. I know it's kind of hard if you've never played Chain of Command and you're listening to this, you're probably like, what the hell are you talking about here? But,
and also too, Travis, in one of the appendixes in the back of Chain of Command, they have advanced rules. So when I play with my older son, he's all about the advanced rules. And one of them for the vehicles is, and so frontal, you need 5 or 6 to hit. For advanced rule, it's 4, 5, or 6. And as you go around the tank, it's easier to land hits. And I'm telling you, it kind of makes you think twice, like, maybe I don't need to bring in, a Panzer III, but yeah. But when I play with my buddy Slack, we're back to the human size of just 5s and 6 in the front, so for hits. But yeah, I mean, there's some variety. I mean, if you want to make them tanks not as powerful, where everything's a tiger out there, there's a way to definitely dial that back to kind of just minimize it back to an infantry game.
All right, so we're almost to an hour and a half already, almost. So let's move on. Let's talk about the morale mechanics in both games. Morale is I'll throw pins in on that for bolt action, because that's the morale thing. That's exactly what it's for. It's how rattled are your guys. It's not the same as Chain of Command exactly, or at all, really. Like in actual morale of your whole unit, your whole force, which is tracked in Chain of Command by a force morale. There's nothing like that in bolt action. It's unit by unit, and one unit dying doesn't affect the morale of the whole army. Chain of Command is totally different. If a leader gets hit in a squad on the other side of the board, it affects the morale of the whole platoon. And when your morale starts getting lower, it gets harder to do stuff. You start losing dice. Some missions even have requirements that you keep your morale at a certain level or higher, like 3 or higher. So eventually you'll get down to 2. You can't win. And then when you're at 2, you're pretty much done anyway. So it's you're minus dice, you're minus jump off points. It's just, you're in big trouble when you get that low as it is. So it's rare to win a game with that low of force. I've done it. We have had games where the winner had like a 2 or even a 1 force morale before. So it does happen. But that's not very common. So we'll start with Ryan this time. Tell us about like pins and morale, breaking units and stuff like that in bolt action.
Yeah, so in bolt action, each unit has a experience or morale level. You have inexperienced, you have regulars, and then you have veterans. Veterans are morale 10, regulars are 9, and inexperienced are 8. So anytime you get a pin, which pins are if you hit the unit, even if you don't kill any of the models within the unit, you inflict a pin. After a unit has a pin, every time you want them to do something on the board, you need to roll 2d6, and you need to, I think, equal or exceed their morale. Now, pins make that harder. So, sometimes we talk about the notorious 1-pin order where you roll those 2d6, and that one, just having to roll those 2d6 will make it so that your unit does nothing, or worse, shoots your own men on a foobar.
Right.
Which, speaking of foobars, if you roll double 6s, you roll another d6, and either they run away, or if there's eligible units nearby, it's friendly fire. Now, if you ever get more pins than your unit's morale, they just run away. And same thing as if you lose half of your squad, or if you get hit by a flamethrower, anything that triggers a morale test, unless a unit is stubborn, in which they ignore their pins altogether when making that test. If you fail that test, they also run away. So the pins and that morale causing an order test can completely mess up your plans and make a very good unit with one pin be absolutely useless for a turn or more.
Or more, yeah. Yeah, pins. Bolt action is pretty much, it's a pin game. I mean, there's in the competitive bolt action scene, which I'm not in. I would like to do an episode, get a competitive player in here and talk about. It does interest me. I don't have all the stuff I need for it, and I don't know if I have the mentality for it exactly, but I would like to try it. But I know that a big part of that is spreading out pins. Like if you can get a unit like, say, like a Grant, an M3 Grant. It's got multiple weapons. Every unit that has multiple, or a tank can shoot at every weapon at a different unit. So you got these pin spreading units out, or tanks that can just, one pin here, one pin here, one pin here, and the whole point is you just get as many pins as you can on as much stuff as you can, and force them to fail orders. And that's kind of like a big strategy in the competitive scene, from what I've gathered, is that it's almost more effective to incapacitate a unit by making it go down because it fails an order than it is to just wipe it out. So pins are a huge part of bolt action. They're very frustrating, like Ryan said, with the one pin. It's like, okay, I got a pin. It's always the one that just kind of randomly, oh, you know what? I think I did hit that unit on. I think I missed. Yeah, okay, I just got a pin. Next turn, they failed the order. So it's always that one off, just kind of, oh, I forgot about it pin that really always seems to really affect the game. So, all right, so chain of command morale is a huge deal. It's the whole game essentially, sort of similar to bolt action. It's a morale game. You can play it to. I mean, that should be part of your strategy, is drop your opponent's force morale. There's ways to do that. The most effective way I know of is if you have a chain of command dice, which you can end the turn. You get a unit to break that has a leader with it, you play that chain of command dice. Because a leader routing is the worst possible bad thing. There's a whole chart of bad things called Bad Things Happen table. And it's full of stuff. Leaders getting wounded, leaders getting killed, support units getting lost, units breaking, units routing, and that's breaking down by teams or squads. It's a very comprehensive list, and anytime any of those things happen, you roll on it and you might lose morale. But Greg, give us a quick rundown on what I did not mention about morale chain of command.
So similar to bolt action used the terms pin. In chain of command, the other term is shock. Shock is the killer of all things in chain of command. If you don't maintain the shock, a game, you cannot play a game without sustaining some sort of shock. It's almost impossible. But shock is not as incapacitating as say in bolt action, for what I'm listening to what Ryan and Travis were saying. So I'll bring up say a Soviet infantry squad that has like 10 riflemen and one 2-man LMG and a junior leader. That's 13 Joes. So that tells you that before anything crazy happens to them, like them breaking, they would have to have more shock than men, right? Now you can sustain shock and still function for the most part okay. For every 2 points of shock, you're going to lose 1 dice when you fire off that team. The Soviets don't have teams. They have like one big ass squad, or like the Germans, they may have 2 LNG teams, and you have to kind of keep track of when that squad takes hits. All right, I'm gonna give 3 hits over here and 2 hits on this team, and then you roll for it. And so you got to keep track of shock for each team. and whether it be an anti-tank gun or whatever. Shock also affects movement. For every pip of shock, it's minus an inch off your die move, typically when you're moving towards the enemy. So when you get more shock than men in your unit, you become pinned. There's a marker for that, and you typically your fire will now be affected by only you have half fire effect for the rest of the turn. So chain of command, if you haven't picked up already, doesn't really have turns in the natural sense. They have phases. There's another unique way how the turn ends. And then there's broken, when you have more than 2 times shock than men remaining. Then they're pretty much routing 6 plus 2d6 to the rear, right to the rear. And are they lost for the rest of the game? It all depends how early in the game. That if you have a unit that actually breaks, you can actually, if you have a senior leader that is doing nothing, he could go over there and start taking that shock off. So when you end the turn, reassess the shock, the team or the squad's ability to function. Then they're no longer pinned or no longer routed, and they could be back into the fight. I've done that many times early in the game.
You just got to be careful again about if your opponent has a chain of command dice and you attach a senior leader to a routing unit.
Yeah,
that's a good way to lose 3 or 4 force morale all at once.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's that's the game. But shock, it's not like I said, it's not hindering you right off the bat. You could take a few shocks and still function without any issues. But once it starts piling on, especially again, like I mentioned before earlier in the show, if you have a German squad with 2 LMGs rocking, and they're continuously putting that firepower, yeah, you're going to be you don't have the ability to remove the shock as fast as they're putting it on. Yeah, you're going to end up being broken and you're done for. And then, of course, all that plays into, like Travis saying, was the force morale of your overall force. Rolling bad things happen will drop your force morale from, if you start out at 9, back down to 8. And once you start getting below 5, then you start losing command dice. So that's chain of commands concept, is the ability to command and control multiple things. Once you start losing those command dice, then your ability to command a lot of stuff is going to diminish quite fast.
Right. And there's in both games there's ways to manage pin, shock, and bolt action. You have a rally order, which can remove a lot of shock all at once. It's D6 shock, and it's an order test, but most order tests, you take the pins into account. I've been saying shock, but it's pins. So like if you were trying to do a fire order and bolt action, you had 3 pins, you would have to pass a 3-pin order check, which would be your leadership. Say it's 9 minus 3. So you're down to 6. You got to roll a 6 or less on 2d6 to pass the order. And then you still have the pins left over. So every time you pass an order, you pull a pin. So that's another kind of way to manage the pins, is by passing the orders. But once you get so many, it becomes very hard to. So you got to roll low on 2d6, which isn't always easy. Chain of command, there's ways to manage the shock is with leaders. The leaders can use their commands. Each has different number of commands. They use it to pull shock. That's one of the things they can do. But what they're doing, they can't do anything else. So. But that's a big part of the game is shock management. How much time and commands am I going to waste, or not waste, but spend keeping these guys in the fight? That's just a huge part of the game is shock management. And there's not, I think, in sharp practice, there's a holy man that can come in and remove a bunch of shock. Well, in theory, we always roll 1 on that, but in theory you can. I know in the Blitzkrieg chain of command book, there's the drinks cabinet that the British have, which is a holy man essentially. Commissar, I think, can pull multiple shock. I think, I don't know, but shock management, pin management, morale management is a huge part of both games in their own way. So Anyway, we're at an hour and a half. So I think we've gone through it, probably not as in detail as we would have liked. I think each one of these could be a whole hour and a half episode by itself. I think they
there's a
probably
lot
should
there.
be. Trying to cram all these into an hour and a half is hard, especially with no notes. I should be more organized and kind of go down a checklist and talk about things, but I lost my list, so it is what it is, as they say. Let's look at now. We'll go through and we'll look at some stuff that the some of our Facebook group users sent in. And again, I brought them in and they are all out of order. And I tried to bring them in order and just wouldn't do it. So let's start with, we'll start with Jessica's stuff here. Well, mine too. So there's my Tabletop CP pumpkin.
Nice.
And that's the one that she did. And then this is Jessica here. She grew this giant pumpkin. Very proud of it. We did wind up carving something in it for her work contest that she had, but she grew that pumpkin in her garden. So she was very proud of that. And let's see here. So if I can figure out what order these are in, start here. All right. So Chad Murray, he's one of our patrons. He's also the guy that sold me that Winter Soviet Army, which I now have to paint. So he's doing some Conflict 47 stuff. So he's got these Shrek Wolfen, which are super awesome. I love these models. I have some of these myself. I gave him the P-Dot camo pants because I figured, hey, these, if there's going to be werewolves, they're probably SS guys, right? So
yep.
So yeah, these guys are super awesome. These eyes that he has look really good. Very fun models to paint. So he's obviously kicking off on the Conflict 47 thing. We're trying to see these little tiny thumbnails here. So Justin Berman has sent us, some of these are kind of blurry from when I downloaded them, I think. But he's doing the Highlanders, which are always a challenge. I mean, anyone who's painted tartan knows it's a challenge. I did tartan on like 4 or 5 figures for my 51st Highland Division, and that was enough for me. I can't even imagine doing a whole regiment or whatever of these guys. That's it. That's a huge commitment to do a Highland, any kind of Highlander unit like that with the kilts. Let's see here. What else we got? I'm trying to find. All right. So here we have Einar. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. Einar. I'm horrible with pronunciations, but he's got some German command here. He's got an officer, a couple less NCOs, it looks like. So super awesome. Good job on those. And let's see what we got next here. David has brought in, so these are, I believe he said 3D printed 15 millimeter BEF. So chunky boys there. 15, I think those are 15 mil. They're on a base, right? A 3 base. So those look pretty cool. What else we got here? Oh, Scott. Yeah, Scott sent some stuff in. I'll see if I can bring his up in order here just by looking at these little thumbnails. But he's on the, looks like the medieval train. There's a lot of people getting on that lately. I have not got on it yet, but I do like the colorful look. A lot different than World War II stuff, which is just so bland usually. So let's see here. Jessica said no painting skills, but she can grow. Yeah, she's a very accomplished gardener. So there was other Scott stuff if I can find it. Dang it. I think, yeah, here's some more. So I think he said these were Hessians, I believe, for a Americans War of Independence. I guess 28 mil.
Yep, Germanic of some sorts.
Yeah, so Hessians.
Yeah. Hessians are early Prussians.
So are Hessians and Prussians sort of similar? I mean, are how
Uh,
like geographically aren't they sort of close together?
they're both German states.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So there was like 1,000 of those though, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they were called duchies. They're called duchies, small duchies that fought all over and stuff like that.
So I think there was another one of Scots, which man, I really need to figure out a way to get these things. Oh, here it is. To get these things all in order so I can show everyone's in order. But looks like another cannon, one of these old school medieval cannons, which are pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
they're called bombards.
Bombards. Okay, yeah, they're like proto cannons. You know, it's
Yeah, yeah. This is
Bombards,
probably right around.
Javelins.
Yeah, you could. These looks like probably right around the War of the Roses era.
okay. And then next up, we got Mark DeRosa. He's doing the same thing I'm doing, is Sikh infantry. So these look very good. They look a lot like the ones I did.
Very
So,
cool.
yeah, I like them. It's something different. You don't see them very often. It's nice to have a unique unit out there, represent something else. And then in bolt action, they have amazing rules in that they can bring all kinds, like 2 free units. You're getting like 200 free points with these guys if you run them as the the Indian special rules in the Western Desert. You can get a free regular unit. You can get a free observer, artillery observer. So again, if I was a competitive player, I would think this would be a really good choice for a platoon to start with. Is you're starting off with 200 plus points on your opponent. So those look really good.
Yeah, I love the dry brush on all their beards. Makes them pop.
Yeah, a little bit of light gray.
Yeah.
I did not dry brush my beards.
Yeah. Oh, we got to go back.
Yeah, no.
Desert
I'm
dry
almost
brush.
done. I got 4 vehicles left, and that army is done. So, let's see, we got Greg. So our buddy Greg Ward, who does the Wargaming World YouTube channel, sent us. They're kind of blurry. Hold on a second here. So,
There you go.
okay, I kind of I downloaded a couple of different ones, and so it's a learning thing here. Still kind of learn it, but I think these are World War I guys. They have very fancy hats.
Yeah, he's been pushing a lot of World War I stuff. A lot of cool things.
Yeah. So he's a big World War I guy. He's got he runs a World War I Facebook group and everything. So he really loves the World War I stuff. What do we got left here? So Andreas, he sent several things. So these DAC vehicles, super cool.
The weathering is great.
Great weathering on these. Looks like sponge method to me, which is a great way to do chipping. And I love using the original color. So you'll get your DAC vehicles, and then you put the gray chipping on them. So it looks like, okay, they shipped them over there gray. They painted them desert while they got there, and then they wore off, and now they're starting to come through that with that original gray color. Yeah. That's always a good idea.
Definitely good stuff. When I like doing vehicles like that, especially like North Africa DAC and Brits and also Soviet, just beat the hell out of them. The one thing I always try to recommend to people is don't be afraid. Get a pair of small pliers, needle nose pliers, and pull up a fender or break one off. Make it look like it hit something pretty hard and they lost part of the tank.
Yeah. Or you could just drop it.
Well, then you're breaking more stuff than the fender.
So here's another one of his. So we got a bunker here. So I get some burlap or camo netting on top. So this is very nice. I don't see any guns sticking out of it, but I guess it's probably guys will go in there. I'd like to see a Pac 40 barrel sticking out right about there. Yeah. Be nice. And I think he sent one more, I thought.
They're eating their strudel.
Kind of. Hopefully, I got everyone here. I feel like I'm missing somebody. If you sent a picture and I didn't show it, I apologize because I'm gonna have to come up with a better method. Okay, here's it. So Bo sent one of these. I will come up with a way to do this better. Maybe if I import them one at a time, it'll put them in order or something. But they're all labeled because I took snapshots in my editing software with them and put the name on them and stuff. So they're all numbered. They're all named like snapshot 1, 2, 3. So I brought them in. It's like, well, it's going to bring them in order, but no, it didn't. I don't know why, but anyway, that's behind the curtain stuff. So Bo, he's doing some German stuff. It's like a guy with a potato masher. And that's Justin again. Ah, man, I cannot see crap.
Love those beards.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So Bo's doing German stuff. I had another one of his too. I could have swore. Oh, there it is. A work in progress. So a guy with an MG42. So he's working on Germans. I think that's it. I don't want to miss anybody's, but again, if you send a picture and you didn't see it, we probably got lost in the shuffle, and I will make it better for next time. I promise. So. Go back to the comments here before we wrap it up. Thomas Chase said, well, you can't eat plastic and metal. No. Better growing food. Definitely a lot more nutritious to grow food than metal. So our buddy Tyson's here. All these look amazing. Makes me want to take off work to paint. Well, you can't take off work. Don't you own the company now? So you're locked in, right? Scott says, yeah, look at War of the Roses. You got War of the Roses stuff, Greg?
In 15, I did those years ago with an old school rule set called Flower Chivalry from the Canadian Wargamers group. Now all my 28s are Crusader era, Middle East, Mongols, and stuff like that.
Yeah, you got everything. Just for men, yeah, for the beards. They did have a lot of older guys in that squad, all gray beards.
It's the dust.
Yeah, that's true. Removable roof and upper gun, so I'm kind of behind here. But anyway, yeah, so we will, let's see here if I can get the screen back. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and probably call it now. So I don't know if we got everything on our chat. We kind of just went by memory what we covered. Maybe we'll do it again, a more comprehensive thing where we'll just pick one aspect and go through a whole series and just really get in depth, take some good notes, cover everything, and do a good job of covering both games, morale, shooting, movement, and stuff like that. A little bit more comprehensively than trying to just do a summary of everything, which we probably missed a lot of stuff on anyway. So, yeah, so we're going to go ahead and call the stream over. So thanks to Ryan and Greg for coming out. Thanks to everyone who came by and watched and commented. We really appreciate it. And we will do it again. I do plan on getting a more regularly scheduled show, maybe once a month on a Saturday morning, my time, which would be afternoon, back east in the East Coast and farther east over in the UK. And so we can get some of those guys on the show too, because there's tons of people that play. It's huge over there, and a lot of great guys over there playing it and really passionate about this hobby that I would love to get on the show as well. I mean, nothing against Ryan and Greg. They're very passionate about it too, and they're my friends. So, but more people, just different perspectives would always be a good thing. Different cultures. I don't know how different the UK culture is. I guess it is different. They game differently. They look at things differently. So it's good to get a different perspective on things as well. yeah, so anyway, thanks again to Ryan, Greg, everyone who watched. Let us know what you guys think. If you would like to see a more scheduled show, tabletop CP show on Saturday mornings, let us know. Give us some ideas, maybe of some topics you would like us to cover, and we'll check. We'll give it a try. So we'll see you guys next time.